Hey guys, it's Mr. Burns here from Room A110. We're going to talk today about the First Amendment freedoms, or what does the First Amendment say? I might use the acronym RAPPS quite a bit, RAPPS. You're going to know everything about that you need to know about RAPPS and about the First Amendment. So you should have this handout out in front of you. You're probably doing this during Raise or at home. You need to have this ready for our political cartoon analysis next class, so make sure you have gone through the front side of this handout and taken down the notes for this assignment. All right, here we go. All right, so RAPPS stands for, and you can write these down along the left side, top half of the page. So R is religion, freedom of religion. A is assembly. The first P is going to be press, the second P is going to be petition, and freedom of speech is the S, which also implies expression. Okay, so here we go. Remember, you can pause this video at any time. You can always rewind it, you can go back, you can watch it again. All right, so what is the point of the First Amendment freedoms? Why was this added to the Constitution? An amendment is something that's added to the Constitution. We'll talk about the Bill of Rights when we get to the Roots of Democracy unit. Basically, the Founding Fathers, especially one group of Founding Fathers led by Thomas Jefferson, felt like our individual rights and freedoms and rights and liberties were not protected by just the Constitution, just the three branches and the idea of federalism and things like that, so those big concepts. So what they needed to do was figure out a way to protect individual freedoms, and they did this by adding the Bill of Rights to the Constitution right away. Okay, right after the Constitution was ratified, they added the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, a couple years later, and that's what part of it is the First Amendment freedoms. Maybe the most important. It's the First Amendment, after all. Okay? So the first part of this is freedom of religion. We do not have a Church of the United States, right? We have religious freedom. As long as you're not interfering on others' rights and there's no human sacrifice, the government will not establish or endorse meaning promote or advertise one official religion. Okay? All right, next is going to be freedom to assemble or freedom of assembly. As long as you do so peacefully, the government will not interfere. You do this on public land, not private property. And you do not incite a riot or violent behavior or hateful behavior. Okay? So that's freedom of assembly or freedom to assemble peacefully. Okay, next is freedom of the press. When we say the press, we mean the media, newspapers, radio, television, social media outlets, anything on the internet, okay, articles, websites, things like that. The press can gather information, they can publish that information, even if it criticizes the government, but again, it has to be, if you're stating factual information, it has to be sourced, right? You can't just slander or someone's name or a company without evidence. So there are certain limitations to all these First Amendment freedoms, but freedom of the press does exist in our country. Freedom to petition. Petition is where you try to make a change. You ask the government to make a change. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. But basically, you're letting your views known to public officials, to the government. You might be sending around a survey. This could be online or by hand. You might be collecting signatures to get something changed or added to the ballot in an election. Okay, there's a lot of different things you can do to petition the government. Underrated, effective form of freedom and change that you can make. Okay, and then we have speech, which is also expression. And freedom of speech, you can state your opinion, state your beliefs. Again, as long as you're not harming others or interfering with the rights of others, you will not be punished by the government for just stating your opinions. Okay, there are limitations to all of the RAPPS freedoms, though, and we'll talk about those next. Okay. All right, here we go. So when are our rights limited? In other words, not absolute. Absolute being one of your vocab words, right? So if what you say or do leads to either you committing a crime or someone else committing a crime based on what you said or what you did, that's limits your free speech. You can't interfere with others' rights. Playing football in the street with your buddies. and a car wants to go by. You have to move aside, let the car go by, and then continue your game. Or someone riding a bike, or someone running by, or pushing a baby stroller, or something like that. You got to let them go. You're interfering with their rights. You're on a public place, after all. You can't say something that's going to lead to the overthrow of the government by force. And the last one, maybe the most important, when what you say or do endangers other people's safety, security. They don't feel safe. They feel like what you said or what you did is going to lead to something that's going to put them in harm's way. You can't provoke a riot. You can't scream fire in a crowded movie theater if there's no fire. Okay, that could incite a riot. It could lead to a stampede. All right, we got one more thing to talk about, not just the First Amendment here. We got to talk about due process, which is going to be the 5th and 14th Amendments. So we talked about 1, we talked about 5 and 14. You probably maybe learned about the 14th Amendment a little bit last year after the Civil War, when you learned about the Reconstruction Amendments. So the 5th and 14th. All right. So the 5th Amendment is the national government must protect due process rights. In other words, especially if you're accused of a crime, you've been charged by the police, you have certain rights that it guarantees. There's a certain process that must take place. You must be provided with an attorney. You must be read your Miranda rights, which happened back in the 60s when a gentleman, didn't know his rights. He was found guilty. He gave a confession, even though he didn't know he didn't have to talk. Now the police have to read the Miranda warnings. You don't have to take the stand and incriminate yourself. You have right to a lawyer, right to a speedy trial by jury. There's a lot of different parts of the 5th Amendment that apply. And then the 14th Amendment is going to extend due process from the national government through to the state and local governments. A lot of states were trying to go around this process after the Civil War, late 1800s. But they decided to extend due process to the states. Okay, and that 14th Amendment is also your Citizenship Amendment. All right. So we're going to talk about next class. We're going to do a little political cartoon analysis. Here's an example, not one that we'll do, but we'll use this to analyze a little bit. And then we're going to do a political cartoon analysis in class. So make sure these notes are done. Make sure you understand what RAPPS, what due process means. RAPPS are First Amendment, 5th Amendment, 14th Amendment. Okay? Or if you have any questions, bring them to class with you, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you.